Today on the Nerdy Gritty, we discuss how the newly created fighting game code of conduct could smoothly be implemented across the fighting game community.
One more world disappears inside it. Just another hopeless addict. World that makes a man insane. If the drums don't get you, the guitars will.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Nerdy Gritty, where we delve deep into the details of pop culture. I'm Dez, and I have 3 alternate skins, but my moves are the same.
I'm ultimate final boss Fox, who is ridiculously overpowered until you can play me as a character. Then I'm equal to everybody else and lost all of my power.
That's what I love about the One Punch Man fighting game. Is once you get Saitama, he's still
you can literally
just one punch.
One
it still
punch
just
anything.
ruins
it's beautiful.
everybody.
It's beautiful.
Oh man. Well, speaking of video games, one that
we can talk about them today could really just go on a different course than usual.
Yeah, we don't. That's not very common for us.
What is this videoed game?
I was pretty happy that we talked about comics last week. That we had broken a chain of video games for a while.
We try to mix it up a little.
But well, one of them that we are both anticipating pretty heavily just had a showcase. Yesterday, as we're recording this. So for you guys, last week as you're listening to this. But Resident Evil Village, so they really just want you to call it Village.
They do.
Yeah. So Village will be releasing. So we want to talk about, because if you guys don't know, it's a gothic horror style game. We want to talk what sort of gothic horror tropes or
creatures or lore or
standard gothic horror type things do we want to be part of this. And
how could they be implemented in a Resident Evil style? And I've got some good stuff.
I will say, so minor spoilers, obviously. Spoilers for the trailer, 3-minute trailer you can watch right now.
That's been out for months.
Okay, wait, pause. Well, no, it was a new trailer in the showcase.
Sure, I don't know how much new stuff they showed in there.
I think the villains were brand new.
The vampire lady?
Yeah.
No,
I was about to say, pause it,
she's shown before.
Go watch the trailer, and now come back. Okay, we're back.
Cool, we assume you did it.
Yeah, so vampires is the thing here, and
that is
really
what is
cool.
implied, although it literally shows her sitting in front of a mirror with a reflection. So are they doing their own version? Or...
I think it's going to be creepy people that can drink blood.
Yeah, vampires. That's exactly.
So, but what other gothic horror things can we include in this? I want to see different styles of vampires. Some of the Dresden File does really well, and so I want whatever genetic mutation this is, because it's Resident Evil, so it's got to be some sort of like science genetic mutation that has caused all this to have like changed into different ways, and for there to be different powers that different vampires have,
different vampires with different styles,
and then
cool.
Different weapons can affect them differently, things like that. Really brings like a diversity to the gameplay, which, by the way, I hate the block. That's going to be real.
The what now?
The block. So in the showcase,
where
they
you
said,
hold up your hands,
yes,
and somehow you're not killed by a vampire.
Somehow it stops the bullets or the swords from hurting as bad.
No, well, you have steel arms. Actually, you're like Jax from Mortal Kombat. I think there should be a section of the game, I'd be surprised if there wasn't, where you're in a creepy gothic forest.
Oh, absolutely.
Overgrown stuff, and I want some cool like genetic like spiders and wolves and things. And here's how I like looked up a list of like gothic stuff that's like that might work or not. I went to the Innistrad,
it's exactly what I did.
Magic.
I didn't go to the thing, but I just thought
cards,
like, what was an Innistrad?
Like, spiders, wolves, that could work. Also think of the Hobbit, but I think that could really work, because they always include some kind of natural animals that have been mutated and stuff in here, and I think that could really work if you're going through this creepy forest where maybe it's a little more open and you don't exactly know where to go, and you have to like find your way through these creepy woods, and there's wolves and spiders attacking. I'm already getting creeped out thinking about it.
I know. I think another one that they could do really like cool things with, as long as they're careful with it, because you could also be a little bit like not very politically correct here, but gnomes or dwarves or something to that nature. I think having just like little things with arms and legs that can hold weapons just jumping out of trees, like Keebler elves, just
and they're holding like sticks
leaping,
or, just trying to whack you.
But same type of thing, or maybe like dryads for that nature, where they look like trees and then they just leap
They
out of
blend in.
nowhere
Yeah.
onto you. Yeah, they really just blend in. And my first thought was like in knots in trees, like holes in trees, and you got to be really attentive to them because you don't know what's going to be
You don't know
leaping
where,
out of
if
there.
one of them's empty or not.
Yeah.
On that same note, I thought gargoyles.
Oh, I didn't even think about
Very
that.
easily, like there's a part where you're on a castle and you're on the roof or you're walking along like the parapets or something trying to get to another room, and some of the stone gargoyles are not stone, but they blend in. And then you come back through this region and you have to continually wonder, okay, wait a minute. Is that like in Resident Evil 2, is that window going to break this time? Is there something over there now? And you can like pay attention, maybe like see, oh, there's actually a bunch of rocks kind of on the ground, a little stone debris, and it turns out that the gargoyles got rid of one of the stone ones and it's actually a real one there now. And you have to continue, like, if you pay attention, you can shoot them before they attack you, like very easily do that. And then, you know, movement that can like freak you out. I don't know. I think gargoyles could really work.
On a brighter side of things, I want there to be hunters. I want there to be vampire hunters in this.
That'd be
people who are the
interesting.
hell. I mean, you have a shopkeeper again, and unfortunately, he doesn't say, "What are you buying, stranger?" Unfortunately, it's not that shopkeeper because he's the best shopkeeper. But they do have like somebody helping you.
Yeah,
in this.
well, another shop.
Yeah, I want there to be people who will like give you weapons or maybe.
Well, there's
with
that
another
guy with the long
storyline.
hair and the cowboy hat. That might be a hunter.
Well, he wanted to fight you at first.
He looks like an anime vampire hunter.
He does, and I love it. Like, I want this to happen.
Yeah.
So people out there who this is their life, they see you and you're like, oh, city boy out here trying to find some vampires. But they have the trick weapons, you know,
Yep.
my Bloodborne reference or whatever else. But that'd be super cool.
Yeah. My last one, I want to see the first interesting Wesker that I've ever seen, and he is a Dr. Frankenstein-esque mad scientist.
You got such good ones, Fox.
Yeah, the first. I don't care about any of the Weskers ever. None of them are ever interesting. They're just corporate evil man. But I want to see goofy, ridiculous, like conducting weird experiments, creating these homunculi and stuff, creating these like ooze creatures, and he sends them after you. And I'm gonna find him in this like, it's alive, or so, you know, literally just I want that goofiness in there. I think that could be like the eldest Wesker or something like that. He's been here for hundreds, if not thousands, of years, conducting these horrific experiments on these creatures.
Man, that's a really good one.
Yeah, I think if that's not there, now that I've thought about it, if it's not there, I'll be very disappointed.
No kidding.
Capcom, hire me.
Anyway, Fox, what's going on in the news world?
There's some pretty great things happening right now. One of them that I'm very excited to talk about. So one of the greatest memes in recent history, as we talked about the other day, is Bernie Sanders at the inauguration, just being the avatar of the curmudgeonly old man, having to sit outside in the cold at an inauguration for
his big,
a
heavy
president that
mittens.
beat him in the primary. Just, like
he's got his arms and legs crossed, like his body language.
I mean, obviously everybody's seen this meme at this point. It's everywhere.
Yes.
But here's the new evolution of this meme. Bernie Sanders mittens are now an extremely powerful magic item in D&D. So somebody, let's see.
I saw this. It's
Did you? Yeah.
wonderful. Yes.
This is somebody on Twitter named, Bebarce? Bebarce. Bebarce, sure. They have created the Mittens of Redistribution, which is great. Let me read for you the description here. When the cold wind blows and changes in the air, one must grasp and hold on tight to the ideals of the greater good. Those ideals are knitted into the fabric of these mittens and deliver boons to all within the party.
I love it.
The redistribution of wealth is its big thing. It's its big like ability. If mittens of redistribution pass over any unwanted adventuring gear, the wearer can choose to instantly convert that item into its fair market value. The value appears as coins and is instantly distributed evenly among the party. First of all, that's OP. That's incredibly
ridiculous.
OP.
Yes.
You could find anything. Like I don't even know if it has limitations, but I love it.
I mean, what you do at this point is you get your rogue to put them on. Rogue sneaks into BBG's Big Bad Guy's house.
Sure.
And just have him pass over all his stuff.
Yeah, just kind of.
Well, on an equally bright note, Disney Plus is going to be streaming one of my all-time favorite TV shows.
Okay.
Uprocks, I got an article from Uprocks here. The Muppet Show is coming to Disney Plus
yeah, I saw
to
an ad for
remind
this.
you of its greatness.
Sure.
Fox, did you ever watch The Muppet Show?
I've never watched a single Muppet anything.
Holy crap, it is delightful. It is everything that you could want out of like a Saturday Night Live that you could sit down and watch with your whole family.
Nice.
And I love every minute of it. And the stars in it are great. It's one of those things where, like the Muppet movies, it's one of those kind of traditional honors where if you get asked to be this,
you do it and you immediately say yes.
Yeah, or like being on Sesame Street.
Sure.
Where it's not like the S-list movie star party or whatever. It's just this like wholesome family thing where this is an honor, man.
Yeah.
This is super cool. And so like my favorite one all time is After the Empire Strikes Back. Mark Hamill was a guest on the Muppet Show, but there were two guests, Mark Hamill and his cousin Luke Skywalker. And every time Kermit's like, "No, Mark, we know. Like we know that it's a movie." And Mark's like, "No, I'm gonna go get Luke. I'll be back." And he runs off screen, and he comes back, and then Luke comes back. He's like, "Oh, what's going on? My cousin Mark just got me." And then at the very end, Kermit's like, "We want to say thank you to Mark Hamill." Oh, and Luke Skywalker. And Luke Skywalker comes in on the other side, and they're both on screen at the end. And he's like, "Wait, what?" Like, what have you been up to, Fox?
I've been watching a bunch of movies. You know what? First, let's talk about Maneater.
Let's talk about Maneater. Even though I said I have not been up so much, and so I was going to bring it up. No, that's fine. Let's talk about Maneater.
I did it.
We played Maneater. We just finished our playthrough of it, so you can head over our YouTube channel. It's probably already done by the time you're listening to this.
By the time it's up, it's already been finished.
Yeah,
yes.
and we've started our new playthrough of Night in the Woods.
Night in the Woods.
But Maneater was a little bit too long, for my opinion.
Yes.
But other than that, way fun.
It was a viscerally fun game where if I was playing this on my own, I would have hated it. But like hanging out and playing it with you made it much more fun.
Yes.
We got to laugh at it. We got to talk about it. We got to like listen to the jokey lines in there a little more. But the game is horrifically one note.
Yeah, it's bite.
It is find
tail whip.
thing, bite it. Find thing, bite it. And then like just repeat ad nauseum.
I just last night finished the up-to-date Peaky Blinders. So I talked about this before, but I was about to bounce off of it. Season 3 was a huge disappointment.
Okay.
Season 3 played like somebody's James Bond meets Ocean 8 set in 1920s fan fiction.
See, that sounds really cool, but
there's royalty and a secret society and a secret government agency, and both of them are playing into this, and there's also a heist going on and all this other stuff.
Okay.
Which, remember, this is a basic like this is supposed to be kind of Guy Ritchie style, where it's some like a local gang in Birmingham,
right?
Not James Bond. And
so
it
a
did
little
not
above
fit.
their pedigree. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really weird. But season 4 brought it back with just mafia, an American mafioso whose father was killed by the Peaky Blinders comes to Europe to get revenge.
Huh.
And it so good. It
brought
was
it
way
back
better.
down to earth a little bit.
Yeah, but season 5, hopefully season 6 will be like make it better, but season 5
I didn't realize this has been going on for so long.
Yeah.
It's a
season 6 is supposed to be the last
Netflix
season.
show.
It's supposed to be the last season.
Okay, yeah.
Season 5 is Hitler.
I've got a bunch of movies to talk about, but I'm only going to talk about them in two groups. One of them is Mad Max 2, The Road Warrior.
Mm-hmm.
I watched it again. It had been a long time since I've seen the second one. And here's what I'll say. It's great. It's wonderful. Obviously, most people would agree, Fury Road is the best of the series.
Right.
It, not saying that any of the rest of them are bad. I don't think any of the rest of them are bad.
Fury Road won Academy Awards.
Fury Road is the pinnacle. It feels like George Miller, this is what he was trying to get to the entire time.
Yeah.
What I'll say that Mad Max 2, and I guess the other ones, but I think Mad Max 2 really encapsulates it the most, has for it, is that it feels much more, real.
Mm.
Fury Road is a beautiful work of art, every single frame is basically like a painting, like with these beautiful like storms and like violence and all these things. And Mad Max 2 feels like a bunch of people driving down a road trying to kill each other because they need gas. You know, where it's like
gasoline.
It feels gasoline. It feels much more like real and grounded. I said a bunch of movies to talk about earlier, and I'll talk about the rest of them.
Oh, just the one. Okay.
Not as individuals,
but as a group.
But as a group. I watched Nightmare on Elm Street 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Oh boy.
There's a couple more I haven't watched
boy.
yet because there's 6. There's 6, which is Freddy's Dead. 7, which is
New Nightmare.
Then I haven't watched the remake.
Yeah.
I've got 3 more to watch, but I watched the first 5, and I'll tell you, they're not great.
No. The first one was very scary.
The first
for
one
its
is
time.
a classic
Yes.
slasher movie.
Yes. After that, they just get bonkers.
It's really interesting because the first one's a classic slasher. It's got some low budget stuff, but it works really well. It has very specific rules. Freddy, he can only hurt you in your dreams. There's kind of a blurring point where like you can pull something out of the dream, and so what they do is pull Freddy out of the dream and are able to kill him in real life.
Right.
And then and like every single slasher
they do
movie,
the same thing in Freddy's Dead
of those kinds, where at the end he's there still for no reason. He's just back. Like you get used to that. That's not even part of the game. They're just not dead. In 2, they actually changed the entire thing.
On the exact same notes of Nightmare on Elm Street, I watched Beverly Hills Chihuahua. So
why?
So we have
you had nothing else to watch with your kids. Nothing. You couldn't watch Moana again.
So we have DVDs in our car, and DVDs come with previews, and one of the previews and one of the DVDs is Beverly Hills Chihuahua, and my kids had seen it at some point, and they were like, we want to watch that, we want to watch that. And my wife and I had avoided it for so long. And just recently, we were just flipping through things, and it just showed up because it's a Disney movie. It just showed up as I was flipping through stuff, and the kids were like, oh, that one, let's watch that. We've been wanting to watch that.
This is the most effective birth control I've ever heard.
Oh, gosh. Here's what I'll say. Are you ready for this?
If you tell me that it wasn't bad, I'm gonna come over there and attack you physically.
It was not as bad as I expected.
I'll kill you.
It was not good, though.
Yeah.
It was a bad film, particularly for it being more than a little racist.
Well, that's all I've got.
I got one more thing.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, I added one more thing because I want to talk about... It's a nerdy thing we don't talk about, but it's still nerdy. Okay. I have been cooking a lot, and I have been loving it.
Yeah, you gave me some hot sauce to take home today.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to try it out.
So, from scratch has kind of been my goal recently. What can I make from scratch? I don't bake. I don't know why, but I suck at baking.
Baking is much more of a
science
than an art.
Chemistry. Yes.
Yeah, my wife bakes a lot, and I've learned that from her.
There's baking, and it's a science, and then there's regular cooking, and that's an art.
Yeah, you can't really like mess around with baking as much as you can. Right.
And so any tiny mistake, like there have been times I'm like, ooh, I put a little bit too much lemon in this. It's real tart. Cool, that's fine. I'm gonna add a little bit of like chili powder, some coriander, some really earthy, smooth notes, and then dilute it all a little bit with a little bit of like more broth or water or whatever else.
Even it out.
Fix it. No big deal. Can't do that with bacon.
Oh no, 1 teaspoon of this extra, and it's all garbage.
Yeah, either add the same amount of everything else exactly.
Yeah,
get your conversion
double it. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah. So. But it has been really cool just to see how good food can be when you make it from scratch like this. So I made my own hot sauce. I'm really excited for that. And then I have 3 different broths going upstairs right now, just from scratch bone broths. 2 bone broths, and then 1 is a shrimp broth with shrimp shells that are just roasting up there. So yeah, I've been cooking.
Okay,
and I
that's all you got.
I wanted to talk about that.
Share it.
That's it. Yep.
All right. Well, then I think it's about that time to get down to the nitty gritty.
Hey, before we do that, if you're listening to this, it means you're listening to an edited version of our podcast. We do not cut the main content that comes after this, but everything before this, we kind of cut down to make it more palatable for the casual listener. But if you are the elite hardcore Hacksaws listener of the Nerdy Gritty, and you want to squeeze every last essence drop of Dez and Fox out.
Please don't.
Please don't. That sounds
horrible.
yeah, don't do that.
Or inappropriate.
But if you want to hear more of what we have to say, you can head over to our Patreon. It's patreon.com/DezandFox, and you can become a patron of ours at the second tier or higher. You get access to the unedited version called the Director's Cut of the Nerdy Gritty. And it has sometimes 10, 15 minutes, sometimes like half an hour more content in that first chunk of things that we're just chatting about, stuff we've been up to, news, all kinds of cool stuff. And we would love it if you do that. But hey, maybe that's not something you can afford right now. Maybe not something you're into. We appreciate it when you support us in any way. That means telling your friends. That means sharing it on your social medias. That means going to your MySpace page. And you know how when like people go to your MySpace page, you can have a song that's already playing when they get there. You can have it be our podcast. And
people won't get annoyed by that at all.
No, it'll be just fine.
They'll be more surprised that this MySpace page
when
is
they
working.
hear it for 3 seconds and then pause it, which is exactly what happened back when there was MySpace.
Right.
Anyways, whatever you can do, we just want to say thanks for listening. Now let's get down to the actual nerdy gritty.
On January 14th, the most recent update of the fighting game...
A day which will live in infamy.
Equally important. January 14th, the latest update of the fighting game Code of Conduct was posted. This is basically a set of rules and regulations or an agreement that the fighting game community could, if this were implemented, agree to live by in order to standardize the experience that is had during a fighting game event, some kind of tournament or whatever you got. Now, to be clear, this is a community-made document. It is made by I think just a couple of people, and it's pretty interesting. There's a lot going on here. What I want to do, we're not going to read through the whole thing. It's actually fairly long. It's got lots of rules and stuff. What I want to do is read the preamble, though. That kind of states its purpose.
We the people of the Smash Brothers States of America,
in order to
establish
more perfect Smash.
In order to get to 20 XDX.
All right, so here's the preamble to kind of give us an idea of what the purpose is here. What we want to talk about is pros and cons. How could this be implemented well? And I do have another topic that I want to get to that I haven't actually shared with you yet.
Okay.
When we get there.
Ooh,
but
surprise topic.
I'm going to spring it on you. Here's a preamble. Here we go. This is the fighting game community code of conduct. Its goal is to prevent and expel predatory behavior and emotional, sexual, verbal, and physical abuse to create a safer and more inclusive FGC, fighting game community, in which more people can enjoy the fun, exciting, grassroots spirit of our community. It was put together by community volunteers, reviewed by other community volunteers, and agreed to by community leaders. It applies to all the players, attendees, tournament organizers, staff, streamers, commentators, posters, and so on who attend, run, or use the tournaments. Online messaging platforms, chat rooms, servers, and other community gathering places that have signed on to enforce it. In the wake of so many examples of abuse, bigotry, and other bad actions in our scene, we must recognize that we have not done enough to keep our community members safe. Previously, we've only relied on individual tournament organizers and professional tours to conduct their own disciplinary actions. Unfortunately, that kind of piecemeal approach not only places an unfair burden on those TOs. What's a TO?
Tournament organization.
Yeah, that makes sense. It also necessarily ends up in decisions that can come across as slow dogpiling that can feel inconsistent or that are made by people who may not be well connected to the community. We hope that this code of conduct will solve these problems by empowering faster, more uniform, and more community-focused action. Please read the rest of the document, which we've tried to write in a way that doesn't take a law degree to get through. Remember, these rules will apply to everyone in any tournament, event, or discussion space that adopts this code of conduct, so make sure that you understand them. If you have any questions, please feel free to strike up a conversation at gives an address or email address. And
I love it.
Yeah,
Man, that's
a good preamble.
That's so
it very
good.
clearly states what its purpose is.
Yeah.
It gives you. It doesn't say here's examples of what has happened, but it says there have been examples of this, and this is what we're trying to avoid.
Which a cursory Google check will take
very
care of that
easily.
For you.
Yeah, it does
will
not take long.
depressingly make that clear.
Even if you specifically want to look up the Super Smash Bros. Tournament community, that's a big one too. Then the rest of the document, it gives very specific, like, here's where this applies, here's what its purpose is, and then here are actual conduct, like, violations that could include.
Yeah.
And one of the big things that I've seen a lot of people kind of commenting on and thanking them for is it even includes a segment
Hygiene?
on hygiene,
Yeah.
which is interesting. That's an interesting one to me. So like I said, what we're going to talk about today is not necessarily if this is good or bad enough. Neither of us are part of of the fighting game community. I don't really think it's our, like, we can agree with it for sure, and I
Right.
think we do, but it's not really ours that, when I go to the tournaments, then I don't know. This isn't for me.
Yeah.
We're not part of the fighting game community. So
Yeah.
what we're going to talk about is how could this be applied to the fighting game community, and how could it be applied smoothly? How could it be applied fairly and without just without room for bias or whatever we're trying to avoid here? And so that's the kind of question we want to answer today, if we can.
To me, it sounds like this is going to kind of be like the ERSB, where this is an independent organization of people who love this thing.
They're independent in so much that they don't have a financial connection to any of the
any of the actual
developers
tournaments.
or the tournaments or whatever. Yeah.
Right. These are just community of
They're
the
part of the
fighting
community,
game community
yes.
people, yes, that have created code of conduct, and they're saying to anybody, if you want to slap code of conduct, fighting game code of conduct on your events, cool, we want you to do that, but also you have to have your people follow these rules, and if they don't, then they can't be in your tournament. And essentially, if you guys don't know this, that's what the ERSB is.
Yeah.
The ERSB is a community of people who love video games or just love kids and want kids to be able to
Sure, yeah.
to inform parents about video games. And they just rate video games kind of on their own time as their own thing. And then they come together with this rating, and then they say, hey, you guys can use this if you want.
Well, you do submit your game to the ESRB.
Right.
There is a whole process on it. If you want to learn more about that, NoClip has a documentary about the ESRB. It's really interesting.
And,
But yes, it is an independent process.
right. And so,
It's also voluntary.
or also like the comic book code.
Sure.
The comic book code was something that was back in the 60s and 70s, I think.
Yes.
That's when it first came out. Maybe even before
Wait,
that.
yeah, like the 50s, really.
Yeah, where people were worried about more than anything, is this comic book teaching my kid to be a communist?
Is Superman and his ways of justice communism?
And so they had this independent rating thing, and if you wanted to, you could slap, as long as you followed it, you could slap the comic book code logo.
Comic Code Authority. Was
Yeah,
what-
Comic Code Authority logo on your comic. Here's the thing. You might think if it's voluntary, then nobody's going to want to do that. But the opposite is true.
Yeah.
To be able to get this label of we have been approved by the people who love this thing, dude, that's great.
It's good for sales.
Yes, it's good for everything. It's good for sales. It's good for the people who are making it to know, okay, we have a really clearly outlined thing that we have to do here.
Right.
If you're organizing a tournament, if there's that guy who he's real popular with the kids TM these days,
Right.
but he's also kind of a douche. Can we tell him not to come? I guess. But now you can say, you know what? Actually, we are part of the Fighting Game Code of Conduct.
Yeah,
and you violated Rule 3.12.
Yeah.
You can't come. I'm sorry.
Right,
You,
right.
You can't. I think that this is great, and I think implementing it like a comic books code or ESRB type style will be really beneficial.
It's like it's one of those things where it needs to get off the ground, and then it can just and then it can be real solid. It needs to be adopted by some companies or some organizers at the start to give it some credibility.
Right.
Because at this point, it's just something that some people made, and those people might be respected, but if it's not like adopted by anybody at the start here, then it's just gonna fizzle.
As somebody who has organized events, though, I can tell you how eager I would be.
Yes.
I would want to do this because, I guess there was no youth group authority, like church events code of conduct
Sure.
or authority or whatever. But if I could guarantee that my overnight event required that my kids shower every day, that it was that my middle schoolers that are here for a week had to shower every day by contract or whatever, by authority.
Now, in the same vein, I would, when I worked at the church, I would organize childcare for the groups that I oversaw, and I would be able to tell, because it was our policy, that every single childcare provider had been background checked and is so on a regular basis. And there is all these levels of redundancy and rules that they are well aware of and that they have agreed to follow and all these things. And I have had multiple conversations with parents, and they're understandably, there's a visible like relief that they can say, you know, it doesn't prevent bad things from happening, but at least you can't say, well, I didn't know what the rule was, you know, that kind of thing. And I think that's the real benefit is here, that you, if you make every single person participating in this event sign a piece of paper that says, I agree to abide by this code of conduct, and then they break the rule, they can't say, well, I didn't know what I was. Oh, this is, you're biased and this is bad. And, you know, it just gives you a standard of conduct, authority.
Well, it's shocking to me, number one, how necessary this was. The amount, especially from the Smash Brothers community, how many people came out or were found out. Yeah. But on the flip side, just how common this is in general.
Yes.
So Penny Arcade came out with a comic the other day where Gabe's son comes out and he's like, yeah, I found out my favorite YouTuber was a pedophile. And Gabe pulls out a book and he's like, that's why I wrote this book. And it's titled, So Your Favorite YouTuber's a Pedophile.
I think the actual phrasing was, wait, so my favorite YouTuber is a pedophile? And his reaction without saying anything else is, oh, probably.
Yeah.
He has no context. Is a great joke.
And so, but the tagline, or I guess the punchline of it at the end is, you have a book, so I guess this happens a lot. And Gabe's like, I've sold over 1 million copies. And so it's shockingly common for this to happen.
It is a common thing, yes. It is, I mean, not even just like within the world. That's the unfortunate reality, is that the video game community is not some separate like Shangri-La place of perfection apart from this horrible world. It is part of the horrible world.
Yeah.
And it's subject to all of the horrific things that can happen anywhere. And this is a way at least to guard against some of that.
So being able to say, hey, parents, our event only has contestants, only has players that meet this code.
Yeah.
So your 11-year-old, I mean, I haven't read through the entire document, so I don't know. Maybe the code of conduct does not include language or whatever else. But your 11-year-old can probably watch this just fine. And because this also includes their Twitch streams, their YouTube Let's Plays or whatever else, they can probably go to their Twitch and YouTube channels too. Like the way that they've worded this and stated this and saying, we're not just keeping these tournaments accountable, we want to keep the players accountable in these tournaments. We want to make sure that even when you are out doing your own thing, if you are a bigot on your Twitch channel, you're not going to come to any of these tournaments, man. Sorry. Yes, that was your own time. Yeah, that was your own thing. Sure, that's fine. You're not welcome at our tournament, though.
Yeah. What I think there's a good analog here in the speedrunning community. I've been watching the AGDQ and SGDQ Games Done Quick events for 5 or 6 years now, and I have seen myself a kind of evolution in the way people talk in the actual chat rooms, like the Twitch chat room for it, as well as kind of the meta conversation around the Twitch, like the speedrunning. At least those events.
Yeah.
Where it used to be a very small grassroots, like it's just people doing a thing and they just organized a little bit more than they usually do. And it had no filter. It was just whatever happens. Like, and people enjoyed that, but it started becoming bigger and they started becoming more well known. And then logically they started making more donation or more money from it and being able to donate more. And they started to realize that we're going to have to create some kind of standard. And it meant that some people I saw like in chat rooms use certain types of language and were banned. And there were some that you could maybe say were, overly sensitive or not, whatever. Right. That's not what we're here to say. Is that now, a couple of years later, that's not a thing I ever see anymore.
Mm-hmm.
People have come around to the understanding that this is not necessarily about how, trying to keep them down or to silence them or to this. There is something beyond just some people wanting to watch speedruns. There's a purpose to this.
Yeah.
As well as it's a very diverse community. And if you're going to speak this way, then you are not allowed to speak. Now, we also have to be clear. That's not censorship.
Right.
That's the thing we always have to say. Censorship is a legal process that when a government disallows somebody from speaking. That's not. This is a private entity.
Yes.
Stopping somebody from speaking in a forum that they were made known the rules. Like,
if you were to walk into a Walmart and start screaming about how much you hate women or whatever, and they ask you to leave, that's not censorship.
That's not censorship. That's get out of my store.
Yeah, telling you stop being a douche and get out of my store.
Same with like Twitter and stuff. Like, they have their own rules. It's a private organization.
Yes.
They get to do what they want. So the speedrunning community, I think, is a really good example of, there was going to be some controversy for a little while. People didn't get to speak how they have been speaking for several years, and then they didn't get to be a part of it in the same way and had to change themselves, essentially. And now, as far as I know, it's calmed down, and it's actually, they, aside from the last couple, because they've been all online, it's been a lesser year, they make more money every year.
Yeah.
Like, it hasn't torn down the community. In fact, more people get to be a part of it now because they can be a little more worry-free when it comes to the chat and being demeaned for who they are.
Oh man,
which is something that we could look for, that the fighting game community could really use.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And that's what I'm about to say is the way that people talk about other people in the fight, because I understand it's a head-to-head competition.
Yes.
And when there are head-to-head competitions, there'll be high emotions.
100%.
And even if you're a viewer, there's high emotions. There's a lot of loyalty involved.
Yeah.
You see this stuff in sports as well. You get a lot of high emotion in there. Man, it can be vitriolic, and so have standards for that is great.
Yeah, the tone I've gotten from this code of conduct is that it's not necessarily saying no trash talk. It's kind of more trying to address the tone and the nature of that trash talk.
There can be trash talk like, yeah, son,
you suck.
Get out of here.
You're terrible at this.
Wreck your face.
Whatever.
Yeah, but if you'd be like, yeah, girl, women suck at this. Yeah, man, you can't play. You need to be in the kitchen.
Yeah, and then he starts using the N-word or something.
Yes, no, get out.
That's not trash talk anymore. That's just attacking somebody.
Yes.
And it's also not creative.
Here's my fear, though.
Creative.
Here's my fear. When the Combo Code Authority did their thing, eventually in the 80s, there was the Super Chic not endorsed by the Comics Code Authority.
Right.
There are video games that still come out today that are like, we are not rated by the ESRB. Like,
mostly on the wastes of Steam.
Yes. And the whole idea here is I fear that there will be tournaments or groups that are like, oh, you don't want to do that dumb fighting game code.
Yeah.
Come over to our side.
Come over
of
to our
things.
cool, edgy underground.
Now, I do understand that kind of just gathers all the douchebags in one place, and so it's fine. Sure, go do your thing. I just hate the attraction of that, though. That so many people are like, "Ooh, that's where the cool guys are."
Well, here part of it's okay. Yeah, go do your thing, whatever you want to do. It's like having a forum specifically for political talk on a like a specific thread for political conversation.
Right.
It's like, even if you don't want to, whatever, that's appropriate, you can go talk over there. Here's where I think that could be less of an issue than it might be in other realms. Tournaments can't happen without the games. And the developer, I think, Capcom, if it's a Marvel versus Capcom tournament or whatever, I think they could be well within their rights to say, hey, you cannot use our game unless your tournament abides by this code of conduct.
I want that to happen. Because we briefly talked about this last week. And I said the same thing, that I will hope that Nintendo does that for the Smash stuff. But I agree. Hopefully all of them will say, we require you to follow this code of conduct.
We will fully endorse your tournament. It's great. But you have to do this. We're not going to charge you. We're not, it's just as simple as this is what you agree to put on your tournament.
Or you'll get a cease and desist.
Or you get a cease and desist, and we're perfectly within our rights to do that.
Yep, and you can pick another fighting game.
That's fine.
Yeah, whatever
That's fine.
else you want.
Go do your own thing. There's lots of fighting games, but for our stuff, we want our game to be portrayed. We want it to be a part of a community that actually, has these values, because that's what we have at Nintendo. That kind of thing. Here's something though that I want to spring on you.
All right, here it is.
As far as the community, kind of. I wonder if there is some version of this or something in the vein of this code of conduct that could be created that applies to the developers.
Oh.
And here's why I say this. Now, this is obviously a very anecdotal, specific case, and is not common as far as I know. But recently, this is an article from Tuesday on Kotaku. We found out that there was a Mortal Kombat player disqualified from a tournament, for criticizing the developers, for criticizing NetherRealm Studios.
Interesting.
And here's essentially what happened. The character, the player, you can create your own version of the character with its own moveset and all that kind of thing. And then you can label that, basically give it a name.
Yeah.
And they named their character, why did NRS do this? Why did NetherRealm Studios do this? Because it was a version, they created a moveset on a character that was essentially pretty OP.
Oh,
And they said, well, why
it.
would they do, like, using that said, why did they do this? And that character was disqualified in the middle of the tournament because of it.
Really?
They did. The disqualification, reading from the article now, made for an awkward moment on the stream when the official broadcast cut away from the top 8 match just after just a few minutes. The commentators were left fumbling for words to explain what happened. They literally brought the ban hammer down in the middle of the tournament, in the middle of a match.
Was this a NetherRealms match? Like, was it sponsored by NetherRealms?
This was, let me see, this was
because if
an
NetherRealms...
official Mortal Kombat 11 Pro competition.
Okay,
Yes.
that makes more sense.
Oh, yeah, sure. But
If this were just like some, again, like grassroots competition,
Yeah.
and they got a phone call from NetherRealms, like, hey, we're watching your stream right now.
people crash through the windows, taking you to video game jail.
Man, and see, to me, it's almost like unionizing your tournaments.
A little bit. And here's so using that, and you know, we hear about companies bringing down the ban hammer in competitions and stuff, or like on Twitch or whatever, like because of whatever reasons. Is there some version of a code of conduct that the community, quote, could create to give, like, hey, this is how we'd like to be treated?
Yes, absolutely yes. I think really the reality is that anybody can make anything. You can get 5. You
Well,
and I
sure, we could make
sit
it right
here
now.
and create something and say, okay, if you want the Dez and Fox stamp, you have to follow these rules. But
And they'll all say, who are you?
yeah, who is going to care is going to be the important part. So if the fighting game community gets together and 30% of them say, okay, here's the developer standards where you have to respect our players need to have a freedom of opinion, and they can share those opinions as long as they're not
If they don't violate the code of conduct that we're following
or whatever else. But if 30% and a developer knows, they can still get 70% of their audience, be part of all the tournaments or whatever else they need to do. So it would have to be a huge community gathering like this is.
It'd have to be that, and there'd have to be some kind of, I mean, there has to be a recognition that it is a mutual relationship here.
Yes.
It's not just you get to play our game. It's, hey, go play our game, and that will very effectively advertise it to a lot of people.
Yes.
And that game will continue to be popular and continue to be played, continue to be purchased, in-game content continue to be purchased, whatever. Like, it's not just that NetherRealm Studios gets to give you their cool game. It's that then the community will continue to support their game,
Right.
and they will continue to be able to make more games. There's a symbiotic relationship here, and I think one of the big things here, especially with this, like you said, like there's a lot of like, here's how we want you to treat the players, have freedom of opinion as long as it does this. I think a big thing that needs to happen, and this could be said for a lot of online communities right now, like Twitch, is if you choose to ban somebody or to give out some kind of punishment, you have 24 hours to inform them of why. To give a very specific reason why, with actual receipts, with actual, like, for at this moment on your stream, you did this thing, or in the tournament, you did this thing. Now, NetherRealm Studios, they're probably perfectly within the rights to say, no, you disrespected us through that, so we're going to ban you.
Right.
It's a little much. It's their choice. There's like an appeals process, maybe, but at the end of the day, there have been multiple things, like times when like Dr. Disrespect was banned from Twitch, and
they never told him why
for weeks. I don't even know if it still happened. There was weeks where it's just like, not sure why yet.
As far as we know, he was never informed.
I
why.
haven't kept track of that. I didn't like the guy much anyway.
Right.
But
I mean,
like,
let's be clear. There were plenty of reasons
there
could
were
have.
reasons.
I
but
could have told him if he needed me to.
It's the same thing as arresting somebody without cause.
Yes.
It's like, no, you have to tell me, like, it's legally required here. And I feel like that something like that should be applied to, if you're going to hand down a punishment, tell me what that punishment is for. Because A, that's only fair, and B, I can't get better without. Like, I can't avoid the certain.
The reality in that, though, is that that's the tournament choice, not the developer choice. The people who made the video game didn't say, hey, go in there. It was the marketing team and the tournament organizers that made that decision to boot this guy halfway through the tournaments.
No, not in this case. This was NetherRealm Studios.
Right.
In an official...
But this was an official Mortal Kombat sponsored by NetherRealms, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So NetherRealms is part of the tournament in this. And again, I'm sure it was not guy who created the video game
Ed
who
Boon.
did this. It was...
Ed Boon's there just hacking people's...
It was somebody on the marketing team and somebody who was also part of the tournament.
Sure.
They talked to each other. Like, this was more of a in the tournament decision than people who made the game decision. So I think more what we're talking about here is a code of conduct, not just for people who are in the tournaments, but for the tournaments themselves as well.
That's, yeah.
If you have our code of conduct label on there, not only does it represent the people in the tournament, but the people who are running the tournament are also held to these standards.
Held to this standard, yeah.
And I think that would be a very good thing to tag on, because
watches the Watchmen.
Yeah, you could very, very much abuse any of these things. It's very simple to try and pick and choose one thing on here. Like, sure, you said mean things on your Twitch stream. I heard you call your brother a jerk after he punched you, and that counts. You know, he's
banned.
He's a person of color, and so that was bad.
That's a hate crime.
So am I. He's my brother. Like, he's,
hate crime.
Yeah. So, but holding standards again. Who watches the Watchmen? Holding standards to the people who are watching the standards, I think, would also be good.
Sure, 100%.
Yeah. Well, guys, that's what we got. Let us know what you think about the code of conduct. I'm going to say it right now, so it's going to happen. Fox is going to put a link to the actual code of conduct
absolutely.
in the description of this video if you're watching it on YouTube. If
Wherever you're listening, I'll put it in the description.
Oh, yeah, that's right. There are descriptions on SoundCloud
and everything,
and whatever else. Yes, okay. So Fox will put a link to the actual code of conduct in the description. Let us know what you think. Let us know what you think about the idea of a code of conduct for tournaments. And let us know what you think of our thoughts. We want to say a really big thank you to Granger for the use of our theme song, All My Friends Have Why-Bye, and so do some of my neighbors, off of the album Dear Sam. Check it out. It's good stuff.
Sweet track.
Yeah, dude.
Go check out our YouTube channel if you haven't yet. We got our playthrough of Maneater just finished. We are starting, we've already started, but it's going to be going up on our channel, our playthrough of a game called A Night in the Woods, which has been interesting so far. It's something I'm going into blind, but Dez knows a lot about already.
Yeah.
So get that. He knows all the deep lore, and I'm learning it for first time. I'm playing Assassin's Creed Valhalla. I think you're going to be doing the Bloodborne DLC at some point soon.
If you want to watch a probably a little bit too overpowered run through Bloodborne, the Old Hunters.
That sounds like the most fun way to watch Bloodborne, because you're not going to die as much.
Yeah, as much will
probably
be the key here. Yeah. Thanks again for listening, guys, and always remember that save games, save lives.
Bye.
My voice